Everybody, welcome to the 14th episode of the Futureworlds Metaverse podcast. Today, we are super lucky to be joined by our guest, Arabian Prince, who's been around the music business and getting into the space on the blockchain and metaverse and Web3 side in a way that we're going to learn about today. Um, he's been around the music business for quite a while. I've known of him. I've was on a panel with him maybe, is that 5 years ago, something
Yeah,
like that.
something like that.
But let's welcome Arabian Prince, everybody. Thanks for coming in today.
Yes, sir. Good to have me. I'm on here. End of the year. Let's get it.
Let's get it. Let's get it. So, give me some background because I know you kind of grew up on the West Coast. I knew you were one of the founding members of NWA. I used to work with Ice-T way back in the day. He was a big influence on me, and I came up with Georgina Hosa, his manager, as an assistant back in Rhyme Syndicate days, starting probably like '87. And I know you guys were rolling by that point. So, what happened with that? You started out in, was it Skateland? Or I mean, I know all that. Is, like, even Ice came out of like the whole electric boogaloo kind
Yeah,
of
yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
and people don't realize that a lot of dance crews turned into gangster rap, so to speak, right? I mean, tell
Yeah,
me about
yeah.
that.
Yeah. So I came up in Compton. So we had Skateland USA in Compton. And there was also Radiotron. And that's where Ice frequented a lot. He was there. I DJ'd there sometime as well. But yeah, we all came up on that we call it electro funk, that whole old school electro funk breakdance and pop locking era. Because on the West Coast, it was all about parties and it was all about party music. We were all either DJs or B-boys or what have you. And even on the East Coast, back then it was all about parties because you had the Grandmaster Flashes and Planet Rock and all of that kind of stuff. So the early 80s was about partying and dancing. And that's kind of how we all came up together and we all hung out together.
So how did that transfer from? I mean, it was the nylons and like I remember pop lockers in high school and stuff. How did that move from that into like kind of a darker, more more real street vibe, right? I mean, what happened the transition through there?
Yeah, so we all grew up in the hood, right? But we were DJs. Ice was a hustler and a breaker, popper, rapper, coming up on his side of town as well. And it was one of those things where as we would do the parties, you started to see the gang activity get greater at the parties, right? And after a while, I'm mid 80s, it was really, really hard to have a party without something going down. So it kind of like shifted the focus on what's going on in the hood. Like instead of us rapping about parties and freaks and women, it's we start talking about police and gangs and drugs and strawberries and all of that kind of stuff. Even my boy Toddy T with Bataram, kind of more reporting on what's going on in the hood. And that's kind of what the switch was.
It seemed like it happened, like I would say 86, 87, 88, right in that time frame, right? And
It's a little bit before. I mean, you might not have heard about it until then,
mm,
but it was happening before because with Uncle Jam's Army, I remember like a couple of the last parties that they had, at the sports arena. It used to be big parties at the sports arena with like 10,000 people. And you used to get away with that. But then when the gangs got big, you would see like from the stage. I remember being on the stage with Egypt, and you would see on this side of the room just a sea of blue. And on that side of the room, a sea of red. And eventually they would meet up somewhere in the middle and party was over. So that was about, I would say 85 when that
okay.
happened, and then we all switched to doing like, hey, let's make records, kind of like they're doing it on the East Coast. Let's make records. And everybody kind of switched gears to that kind of thing.
So tell me about the formation of NWA. You were one of the founding members, right?
Right.
How did that come about? Was is it easy and Cube come later? Or how did all that work?
So me and Dre used to hang tight. He was with the World Class Wrecking Crew at the time. And, we used to always hang out and go to Venice Beach, chase women, do stuff. And we were talking one day about doing more, because we had a bunch of hits that we had done that were on the radio, but we really hadn't made the money that we thought we should have made off these records because we were producing them for other people. They were making the bulk of the money and not us. And I was a solo artist. It was still getting kind of ripped off, as well. So one day Dre met Easy at the Rhodium swap meet, right? And he met him at the Rhodium and he told me about it. I said, man, I met Easy. Everybody kind of knew who Easy was in the hood. And he was like, man, he wants to, do something else. He's tired of doing what he's doing. I always make the joke that he was a neighborhood pharmaceutical technician at the time. And he wanted to kind of get out of doing that. And we wanted to move into something else as well. So we made an agreement with him. I got to meet him at the same time and, talked about doing something different. It wasn't even a group yet. It was like, hey, man, let's mess around and do something. Let's do something. And we sat around one day, talked about it. And at the time, Yella was down with Dre as part of the Wrecking Crew. And then you had Easy's boy, MC Ren, who lived down the street from Easy. He was just his homie. And then Ice Cube lived down the street from Dre's aunt. And we were all kind of just together. And Ice Cube was with a group called CIA at the time. It was Cube and Sir Jinx. And I think they had one more guy. I can't remember who the third guy was. Maybe it was, oh my God, JD. Maybe I think it was JD. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But anyway, we were just talking, man, and we all kind of got together and formed this pseudo group. And we were at my mom's house one day and came up with the name NWA.
Interesting. And then you guys, was it always on priority, or Dre obviously put the beats together and produced, right? But did he have a deal somewhere, or how did you guys get
Nah, so how the whole thing went down was we did it ourselves. It was on Ruthless Records through Macola, because we were all on Macola before that. Everybody was on Macola on different labels. And we just pressed them up, put them out. And it was kind of like a co-ownership label at the time. It was nobody owned the label. It was us. We would literally press records, split them up. Here's your box of records. Here's your box of cassettes. Go sell them. Whatever you sell, that's your money. And that's kind of how the company started and the first NWA record came out.
That's old school, man. So what happened with NWA? You somehow, I don't know if you left or there was a dispute or there was some just kind of financial hijinks, but what happened back in those days?
Yeah, so I left. We did Straight Outta Compton, right? We were working on Straight Outta Compton, and I had put out a song while we were working on Straight Outta Compton, because we did the first NWA record, which was just us. And then we got a manager involved named Jerry Heller that Easy had met. We didn't know him, but Easy was like, man, he can help us. He can help us. So he got involved. When he got involved, all the money situations changed up. It was like we weren't getting the same amount of money we were getting by just splitting it up. All the money was going to the office, and then we weren't getting the money. And it was kind of weird. And even when we toured, we were supposed to be getting a certain amount of money for doing the shows, but we would get the deposit, but we'd never see the other half of the money. And Jerry was always had some excuse about, oh, we're going to do this with the money and do that with the money. But no, that's our money. That's not like whatever. So I was always a little leery, but I had done this song called Supersonic by this girl group, JJ Fad, that had blown up on another label, Dream Team Records. And they weren't trying to pay me off that record. And I was like, all right, cool. Well, I got my own label now, Ruthless. I took the record back, brought it to Ruthless. We put it out on Ruthless, and it, continued to blow up, sell 1 million copies or what have you. And I wasn't seeing my money. So I really knew something was up. And, no disrespect to the other guys, I don't think they felt the same pain, because we were working on Straight Outta Compton at the time. And I'm complaining like, hey, man, I ain't getting my money from this over here. Oh, it's all right. It'll be all right. I'm like, nah, dude, this is like big money. And the money from Supersonic was being used to kind of support the recording of Straight Outta Compton, which I didn't care, but just give me my royalty portion of it, and we good. And I ended up getting an attorney and going into Jerry and talking about it and finding out a lot of stuff. And I was like, man, I need to be out. So I was going to take Supersonic with me, and Jerry made a deal to keep the record on Ruthless, and I got paid. I got my royalties. I got a percentage of the company, and I bounced. So that's why I left, and it was nothing against my boys. It was just business, at the time. And I told them, I remember after I left, they had a concert and I went to the concert in a brand new Porsche. It was like, where'd you get this car from? I'm like, hey, you need to go talk to Jerry. And I heard that Cube actually, stepped to Jerry because Jerry was trying to get him to sign a contract now. Like he saw that since I left, he need to lock him up, like, oh, so I guess he proposed something like, let me sign this contract and I'll give you this amount of money. But it was our money already anyway. So why do we have to sign a contract to get our money? And I think Cube figured that out. Like, how come I gotta sign this to get that? Nah. And then he was out. So that was the kind of beginning of the end because people started realizing that the business wasn't right. And it was never right over there. So
No, from the stories I heard, it just got worse and worse. But it
yes.
seemed like you said, like Easy brought in Jerry, that caused kind of a rift. Cube I know he had other representation. I remember, I think Patty Charbonnet or somebody
Yeah.
was running with Cube back in those days, and she knew what was going on. But then broke him off, and he started doing movies and stuff mostly. I
Right.
think right, started breaking out that way. What did you do from that point? You did solo stuff, or where did you go from there?
Yeah, I broke out and did a solo album on Orpheus EMI. But at the same time, while I was doing the NWA stuff, I was dabbling in the technology back then. I had my own, for all the people who are older than 50, I had my own BBS back then, which was a bulletin board. I mean, before the internet, there was no internet.
There was
And
no internet. That's right.
no, if you wanted to go online, you had to be on the BBS and you had to dial in a modem. Like you had to take a physical telephone and put it on or plug it into your computer and dial in somewhere to just do something for a short period of time. And it cost money. It wasn't free like now. It was like, I remember it was something like, man, $1 a minute or so. It was crazy. I remember getting huge phone bills for having my BBS, but
And it
that's
was
how I,
slow, right? Like all you got was a line of text at a time,
yeah,
and it was no pictures, no graphics, no
no, it
music.
was ASCII. Remember, I had graphics, but it was all pixel. It was like
Right.
ASCII graphics, like whatever. But that's how I got in, and I was doing that, and I was doing visual effects too on a side hustle. So I did all the visual effects on the first series of the Power Rangers. I did Silver Surfer, Addams Family, Casper. So I had a separate income. So for me, being in the film TV side, especially early 3D animation and visual effects, I was making so much money on that side. I'm like, this music thing where I got to fight for my money all day. I'll do it because I love it. But, Fox Interactive and Vivendi were giving me like $100,000 checks, like here. And I'm like, what I got to do for this? Just this, not, so that's how I kind of got in the whole tech side of things.
So where did you take it from a BBS and from early access and communicating with other folks on the tech side? How did you morph that? Because if you're that early, and I remember those days,
Yep.
right? That means you're early on email. That means you're early on gaming. That means you're early on a lot of areas that ended up blowing up big search, right?
Yeah.
This is pre AOL. So
Oh, yeah.
anybody that thinks AOL is the first thing, this is way before
Way
AOL.
before AOL, before Ask
CompuServe,
Jeeves
all
and
that,
all
yeah,
of that
Ask
stuff.
Jeeves. So how did you progress down that line?
Yeah, like I mentioned, I got in, I was into computers that early. So, I taught myself how to code, taught myself how to do animation and visual effects, and got in bed with Fox Interactive and Vivendi Universal and all of those kind of companies working on film, TV, and video games. I've worked on probably over 100 video games in my career and a bunch of, feature films and TV shows. So I got in that way. And I also had early on how I made a ton of my money was I built render farms. So I had a company rendering the animation for Fox. You know what I mean? And there's like, people's like, why you got all these computers in your living room, like servers, big, because, computers back then were huge.
Yep.
And I'm like, well, I'm doing a little something. And they were just raking in money, raking in money, raking in money. So I use that as my springboard into everything else. And, when the whole blockchain and Bitcoin popped up, I was first in that because over at Vivendi, we were trying to figure out how to use tokens in game for trading assets because we were working on Asheron's Call and EverQuest and a lot of these early RPG games, and people were selling sword, like the sword of Azeroth for like $5,000. You know, people were paying for that stuff,
Oh
but there
yeah.
was no way to make sure that this person got the sword and this person got paid. So we dabbled in Bitcoins and blockchain stuff. It was way too early. We couldn't really figure it out. It was so early. But because of doing that and having keys and wallets back then, I made a nice little piece of change on some Bitcoins later on in life because I forgot I had them.
You're holding 10,000 Bitcoin, right? When it was like 20 cents a Bitcoin.
Yeah, it was something like that. Yeah.
So where did you take that knowledge? Because if you were that early in the game, you're looking now at NFTs, you're looking at other gaming platforms with their own token systems and economies, like you said.
Right.
How do you take advantage of that?
Oh man, just like I have my whole life, man. I've helped build a lot of startup companies, you know, advise them on going to that next level, still deep in the film, television, you know, animation space. Matter of fact, speaking of your buddy and my buddy, Ice T, we just started a new animation company that is about to release a black exploitation cartoon. And it's going to be big. And when I say everybody's in it, everybody's in it. I mean, it's fire. So look out for that. We got a graphic novel coming out as well. So I've stayed in the space. You know, I build hardware tech. I'm a prototyper as well. I had a product come out a couple years ago called M Classic. That's a 4K upscaler that's gone viral and done really well for gaming. So yeah, I've stayed really deep in the space.
I'm looking forward to that. I did a record called Pimps, Players, and Private Eyes with him
Nice.
back in the day. George put it together, but I did a lot of the clearances on that. It was Curtis Mayfield, a lot of stuff from back in the day, and the graphics on the cover of that were pretty cool. It was total, black exploitation
Yeah.
style stuff with the hats and the vests and everything. And yeah, I'm wow. When does that drop?
Well, we're pitching it right now. So like definitely it's going to drop early to mid 2023, probably mid 2023, because it's a 3D animated series. And we hadn't decided if it was going to be a feature. I want it to be a series. You know, Ice wants it to be a series. The creator, Tommy the Animator, another homie of mine who Ice brought in, genius when it comes to graphics and animation and stuff. So we got some heat coming. And like I said, it's coming big. I think it's going to be, and I'm not bragging about it. I just think no one's ever done anything that looks like this. What
No,
the
brag, man.
people
It's
involved, the music, just the feel of it's going to be crazy.
almost like a graphic novel brought to life.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
That's going to be amazing, man. I'm looking forward to that. All right, so where do you see stuff going? I mean, I know you've got this background steeped in music, steeped in the culture, steeped in the technology. I mean, the way I see stuff right now is this is like early days as far as metaverse stuff, Web3, what the people are calling Web3, which is basically a communal thing, right? Where
Yeah.
instead of just a one-to-one relationship with a piece of art or piece of music or somebody else, you could bring your friends and family and build a community versus having to just do it by yourself. I'm buying one thing, I can use it one place. Now it's I can bring my friends, we can all interact. There's some ownership, right, with the decentralization on certain platforms and a degree of that. Instead of just buying a skin or like you're saying a digital product in a game, now you can create that digital product and have ownership of it and sell it again and again and again and benefit from that trade and the increase in value, right? So where do you see stuff as far as the artist? Is it still going to be artist centric? Do you think the music is still going to have a bigger value, or where do you see things going?
So my vision of the future and even the present is that we need to stop looking at separate mediums. We need to stop looking at music over here and video over here and film tele. It's all the same now, like video games, because you need assets from all of the things that I mentioned in everything. You can't have a TV show without music. You can't have a video game without music or video. You can't have music without video now. Like, back in the day it was just music, and now it's more of an interactive multi-medium. So I tell a lot of music students or the next generation that you got to look at yourself as a brand that encompasses everything. You can't just be, oh, I'm just a music artist and I don't care about anything else. You got to care about everything. That's why TikTok is so popular, because it makes you do everything. It makes you, do the music, but create the video, edit the video, put the effects. You got to be creative now to really make money. And I think that's the future, especially with Web3 and the metaverse. Now I explain people, I think the problem with the new everything, like when we got to Web 1.0, all the big companies were like, I don't know about this internet thing, whatever that is. We'll never be on it. And now you can't live without it. Now we're in Web 3, it's flipped. They're like, we're not going to be left behind. So all the big companies that weren't supposed to be in here early, it's supposed to be decentralized, but all the big companies with the money are like, we're the metaverse, like Meta and, all these other companies that put out these metaverses that have nothing, like Sandboxing, Decentraland, took all these people's money, and you're walking around Donkey Kong 2.0. And they might get mad at me saying that, but that's what it is. You got duped into being in Donkey Kong for a lot of money, and oh yeah, I got a house in Donkey Kong. Well, what can you do with it? Nothing.
It's still very 8-bit. No, and I have this conversation probably every other day. But you're right. You see the gaming platforms on one side, right, where there's hundreds of millions of players. There's no doubt that's where the traffic is, and the resolution is high. The gaming engines are highly developed. Unity, all those engines are pushing almost real graphic. I mean, highly rendered, 3D, photorealistic. I mean, you just go play Madden, right? Play a football game or an NBA game or whatever. It looks like real life. I mean, it doesn't even get better than that. That technology, however, like you mentioned, is owned by these big brands, right? So if you want to put a skin in Roblox or Fortnite's going to own that, right?
Yeah.
You can buy it, you can keep it within Fortnite, but you can't use it anywhere else.
No, and you can't really monetize it to
No.
your benefit. And that's why I tell people, talk about the metaverse. Oh, the metaverse is coming. No, the metaverse has been here. Metaverse has been here for over 40 years, because, I know people that see this, but don't tell nobody.
Don't look, guys.
You know what I'm saying? I've been doing this for over 40 years. This was the metaverse before there were computers, right? Dungeons and Dragons. And then when all of the RPGs came out, like your EverQuest and Asheron's Call and, the Elder Scrolls, these massive MMA worlds, people have been living in the metaverse for 40 years, right? So this new thing, you mentioned Roblox, you mentioned Fortnite, that's the metaverse. The kids have been in the metaverse. You think they're in there playing video games? No, they're talking to their friends. They're going on little journeys and building communities inside this virtual space. That's all the metaverse is. So don't be scared about it. It's here. It's been here. Even TikTok is the metaverse. People are interacting in TikTok, and somebody posts something and somebody takes that and remixes it and sends it somewhere else. It's the metaverse. We're in it. And
TikTok's crazy, right? I mean, I have a little thing on TikTok, but it's the tools they provide you with to embellish your video, to edit like CapCut and all that stuff, where you could put stuff together so fast.
yeah,
Right? Either live or an existing video, when you can embellish it, chop it, cut it, dice it, whatever.
yeah,
It's made to like push stuff out quickly.
yeah,
And the
and high
live stuff,
resolution.
oh yeah. And the live stuff, I think is still a kind of a new area, because a lot of the live stuff is like somebody driving their kid to school. I'm like, what do I need to watch this for? But there's guys doing DJ sets live, right, for like 6 hours. You're like, what is this? And there's 1,500 people watching them.
Yeah,
But it is a communal space, like you said. If you want to see some kid learning how to play soccer, some girl doing gymnastics, some guy like I said, mixing or whatever, it's there,
it's
right?
there.
And it's basically free. It's global. Anybody that's got a cell phone with a connection could watch this and participate. The monetization, I don't know, is there quite yet, but that's coming,
Yeah,
right? And you could push to other platforms to make money. And I know labels, all they do for A&R right now is just look at TikTok. There's no other place to go. They just go, how many followers on TikTok? Okay, boom, you're signed, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's the extent of artist development today.
yeah, it
Um,
is.
but it's exciting. The other point I was trying to make was the decentralized platforms, quote unquote decentralized, because we're not fully decentralized. Decentraland, Sandbox. There's this one called Upland that I like because it's GPS mapping of the world. They're
Oh
releasing
yeah, I've seen
certain
that one. Yep.
cities, right? But it's tied to a piece of property. So you can look up your property address in LA and go, wow, someone's owning this for like $5,000 or $500, whatever the price is. And you could build a digital twin. You could actually put your property on, you could put a commercial store on there. They're now selling vehicles so you can drive and drag race down the street, which I'm like, well, what if your neighbors don't want you drag racing down the
Yeah.
street? But it's crazy. I mean, I think on that side, you're right. There's not a lot of traffic yet. A lot of brands are in there. I mean, Snoop is in there, Atari's in there, Warner's in there. But you're right. They've got these areas, and like, why am I going there? Right? What am I?
Right.
What do I care about being there? What's the relevance? And I think eventually, when you see the gamification of brands and the gamification of art, and I'll throw music in there because I know a lot of artists are kind of more purists, but some people are going to go, hey man, mix it up, use my beat, cut it any way you want, add your vocal to it, let's create together, let's collaborate, versus this is my stuff and it's precious and no one's going to touch it. I
Right.
think that kind of attitude brings in the community, brings in other people. But there's going to be a tipping point where I think you're going to see people go from straight gaming environments and those community things are doing there and kind of spilling over into some ownership, because at some point you realize, wow, all my time is over here where I own nothing. If I go over here, I own everything, right? I can have the same, not quite the same experience yet, because again, I don't think those engines are there, and the bandwidth isn't quite there on the decentralized platforms, but it will get there
Yeah.
when the money comes in, when the brands come in, and when people realize they can carve out their own land. So what are you bullish on the Decentralands and the sandboxes, or
So
bearish, or what do you see?
if they evolve, and because I'm all about inherent value.
Mm,
Where's the value, right? There's no value. It's from a gamer perspective, it's a joke. For a person who's never been in a video game, like you said, who's never seen what a real video game looks like, it's amazing. Oh my God, I can walk around, I can do these things. And until they have value, I can walk into there just like I walk into CVS, or walk into there just like I walk into Walmart or any other place, or go to the movies or whatever. When it gets to that point to where it's seamless, then you've got me. And I don't know if you know, I'm the CEO of a medical metaverse company now called MD Dial that we just started.
no,
And
nice. Tell
also
me about
another platform called Driven, which we are building the first carbon neutral racetracks for electric vehicles. But we plan on building a virtual racetrack too, so that you can take your car, your Tesla or whatever car you have a digital twin that you can race on a virtual track. And so we're looking at those kind of things. But for me, being involved with the medical side, there's inherent value from the beginning, right? That's the only reason I got involved, because I'm like, look, we're going to do good. I want to make sure that people who don't have access first in the inner cities. That's why I'm involved in that. But I really believe it's coming, it's here, but the right people have to get involved. And Meta has so much money. A lot of people say, oh, we hate Meta, whatever, it's going to fail. They got too much money to fail, just like Apple. They'll figure it out, or they'll buy a company that has figured it out. One of the first two companies that get sticky, that everybody attaches to, watch Meta or Apple or one of these bigger companies just pop it and just run with it.
No, 100%. I thought they should have focused on hardware, because right now, as you know, like Oculus, which is called MetaQuest 2, I guess now, that's kind of the big game to jump into the VR space, and it's
Yeah.
still $300, $400. Their new
I don't know if
headsets
you can, I don't know if you can see, like, right there.
got there.
There's the box right there.
I see it.
Yeah.
The new one's 1,500, and it's
And no. See, that's going back down that. Remember when the first Oculus came out and it was like $3,000,
yes,
but there was nothing to do but play. You're like, it's kind of like Pong again. Like you get in there, and you're like, I paid $3,000.
But I think with, like you said, with those deep pockets, with those resources, Apple especially, I think this next year Apple's going to release something that's going to blow people away, and it's probably going to be more AR.
Yeah, it's going to be an XR AR kind of play.
XR AR, but you're going to be able to walk around with good battery life, with good visuals, and bring in information and connect while you're mobile. And
Yeah.
I think that's the gateway into getting into this stuff, because right now it is there's a obstacle course to getting in, right?
Yeah.
Attach your wallet. Oh, in your wallet needs to be these tokens in order to activate the wallet. Like, All right, how do I get those tokens? Oh, you got to open an account. Now you got to do KYC with your bank. Now you got to show your driver's license. It's like this whole, it takes an hour to get onto these platforms the right way. So
Oh yeah.
I agree with you. Once you could just walk in like it's there. You could transact, you can meet, you can connect and communicate easily without all these impediments. It's a game changer. And I think the brands are ahead because I see a lot, especially in fashion. I just talked to the DressX girls, Natalia from DressX, which is the leading. It's amazing that the biggest digital fashion platform in the metaverse. Two women from Ukraine started this less than 5 years ago, and they're killing it. They're featured on Meta. They developed this thing called a Meta Closet, and I think they're smart because your avatar's got to wear something, right? When you're in
Yeah.
the metaverse, you got to have something on.
Yeah.
And if you want to express yourself, which fashion, I think for most guys, it's just like, hey, put on a t-shirt, put on some pants, whatever. But women especially understand that it sends a message, right? What is it that you're representing? What tribe are you in? What's important to you? What are you flexing right now, right? And I think that ability with digital goods, digital clothing especially, is crazy, right? You walk into a work environment, it's this thing. You walk into a play environment, it's like this. You go to a concert, it's like that. You want to go shopping or hang with your friends, it's like this. Click, 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 and all your wardrobe can be immediately accessible and travel with you, hopefully interoperable across different platforms. Because it doesn't make sense to buy something that's only usable in Roblox, right?
Yeah.
Which, why would I want to spend $100 on that when I can't use it in Fortnite or I can't use it in Decentraland?
Bingo.
So I think once that kind of interoperability takes place, a lot of access starts to happen. A lot of people start to understand the usability. But yeah, those digital goods, I think they have 3,000 dress pieces, wardrobe pieces. And I thought 3,000. I mean, if someone just had a team of developers this week, they could probably churn out 5,000, right?
Yeah.
5,000 would make you the biggest digital fashion platform in the world right now. So it's still early days. They just made a deal with Warner Records made a deal with them to handle all the digital wearables for their artists.
Yeah.
And who's, I mean, Oksana over there's thinking ahead, but that's I think where you have to go with this. Like, it's like you mentioned, not just the music, it's an entire brand, right? Visually, what am I looking like? How am I going to move? How do I present and relate to my audience and my community? And the part of that includes, what am I wearing and how can I share that with my audience? So I think, these are early times again, and the opportunities are just blowing up right now.
Yeah. 1000%. And on top of that, going back to the XR AR thing, is one of the biggest problems with VR. And I've said this from the beginning, and I love VR. I've got so many VR headsets around. Human beings cannot be totally immersed for large periods of time, right? It's just in our nature. We can't be totally immersed. It freaks you out, right? Your brain, it's so many things that are against what we are used to. That's why don't people go to Magic Mountain or Disneyland every single day? It's the same thing. It's a ride. So VR is an amusement park. It's a ride. It's something that you do every now and then. That's why it's never really gotten sticky. But XR and AR, like, HoloLens and all of these other things that's coming from Apple and some of the other ones out there, if you can live your normal daily life with just an enhancement, I call it the Borg theory. Once we get to Borg space, to where you're walking around and the phone rings and it's just a little pop-up, and I'm talking to you just like I'm talking to you here, and I'm driving down the street and talking and checking my emails and my text messages and doing everything, shopping. I think that's the future. And once we get to that being the daily thing, that's going to open up so many other doors.
I think that comes next. Yeah, I don't know if you've seen Surrogates, that Bruce Willis film from, I think it was 2007. And I keep referencing it because it is so, you watch the film and you're all of a sudden like, Bruce Willis looks pretty good, man. Why does he look so good? And then you realize 15 minutes into the film that that's not him, that's his avatar. And the avatars are living, they're actual bots living in a real world, while all the people are just laid back on their easy chairs with their goggles on as big blobs, right? And they look nothing like their like their optimal self. But are we going to live lives? I mean, we already kind of do, right? I mean, we're sitting here, people conduct business on Zoom all day long, and they're not anywhere. They're sitting in a room and they're operating businesses around the world. So you're going to be able to operate from a standard location or a home location or somewhere. But I think you're right. Getting out in the real world first, like going to events, going to the store, just driving down the street, that information that you can take in while you're doing that. Right now, it's only audio, right? You turn on the radio, play something, whatever. You're hearing it while you're driving, but I think you're right. The next step is going to be let's enhance that driving. And you're already seeing it with some heads up displays in certain cars. But when you could say, hey, there's the speed limit, here's my navigation system, it doesn't have to be vehicle centric. It could
Yeah.
be VR or XR
There you
centric
go.
where I'm carrying it with me.
Yeah.
And if I hop out of the car and now I'm walking down the street, where's that store? Oh, boom, it's over here, next block, make a right, what have you. I look on the shelf, all the pricing, right? And it says, this is available on, this other store for 50% less. Now, I mean, it's the intelligence and the
Yeah.
information that can flow to you that I think enhances our lives. But yeah, I mean, it's exciting times. You've seen Neuralink, right? The Elon thing where he's
Yeah.
literally just going to plug the phone into your cortex
Yeah.
and give you the same ability without that have to go and look at a screen and tap or listen or whatever. So, yeah, exciting stuff coming up. And I do think there's a lot of opportunity for creators, right? And the creator consumer line starts to blur because the same guys that are creating stuff are going to be using the next thing, right? So maybe you create a suit, a digital suit, but you're also buying another suit or a hat or something. So both the same consumer is also a creator in the next room, right? And that's
Yeah.
something that hasn't really happened, I think. And I think everybody's going to be able to have a side gig and make some money creating, building, using, participating in ways that they haven't been able to so far.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think, like I said, we're here. It's just who pulls the trigger first, who gets sticky, and sometimes it's a big company. Sometimes it's some startup out of left field. I mean, because, I often say, I go back to TikTok because it's so funny. People are raving over TikTok, but what people forget, all TikTok is Vine. Vine was TikTok, right? And Vine gets bought and killed.
And shut down, right?
And then somebody else in China went, wait a minute, that was hot. Let's make that, but make it better. And did it. And now they're the biggest thing on planet Earth. So that's why I always get mad at these big, like corporate companies. Like the people at the top are not attached to what's going on. They're just looking at numbers and they're scared. Like, oh my God, we need to buy that because it's affecting our Twitter or it's affecting our Instagram play. So let's buy that company and kill it instead of buying it and assimilating it into what you do. Imagine if Twitter had taken Vine and made it a part of Twitter. Twitter would be bigger than every other platform out there, but they didn't do it.
Watch what Elon does with Twitter, right?
Oh, yeah, no, I have no, hey.
They're still focused on the blue check. And I'm like, get all that,
people
man.
be like yelling at Elon. And I'm like, this dude has created so many things. He ain't stupid.
No,
He's trying to figure it out, but he's not stupid.
he knows how to execute, right? And,
Yeah.
and everybody that hacks on him is a journalist or a blogger or a celebrity. And I'm like, where's your car company, right?
Yeah.
Where's your rocket company? You
There
show me
you go.
something that you built,
Yeah,
and then you talk about it. But
there's only a
making
few
fun
of
of
them.
him, yeah, you making fun of him for sleeping in a tent on the floor. He's trying to get stuff out the door. He's trying
Yeah.
to get stuff done, right? And you can make fun of him all day long, but he's laughing to the bank, right? He's
Oh,
the
yeah.
richest guy in the world.
Yeah,
He's
I mean,
number
people
two
haters.
now, but
People are haters.
yeah.
You
And
know.
listen, nothing's perfect. He's the first guy to say, look, most of my stuff didn't have a chance of succeeding at all.
But
right?
he
This
kept
is
doing it.
kept doing it.
That's the key.
And bankrupting himself, right? Getting to within a day or two of bankruptcy. If you read his book, he was almost done. And then the government came up with SpaceX and said, I think it was $6 billion and said, we're going to give you a government contract to build rockets.
Yeah.
Saved his entire life because he was risking it all. And he's got
Yeah.
nothing to lose. He's out there going, I want to do this. And I really think he's very altruistic. I think he's looking at humankind as a whole. I really think he's trying to, and even look at Starlink, right? People don't even talk about Starlink. Internet for the world, right? Look what that's done even for Ukraine, right? When the Russians have shut down all the power, all the internet stuff is gone. Here's a satellite-based internet system that's giving Ukrainians and many others the ability to connect
Yeah.
in the middle of a war zone, right? And he went to the government and said, hey, can you guys help subsidize? And they're like, no, we don't. He's like, I got it.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to pay for this. I mean, that's not a selfish guy that doesn't care about anything. Yeah, maybe there's some profit motive down the line, but most people just gloss over that, right? They want to focus on, oh, he's fired some people at Twitter, he's doing some stuff. I'm like, those are small moves compared to the bigger picture. I think, this fighting over $8 check marks, that's just, he's figuring out how to monetize a company. He's getting rid of the fat.
Yeah.
And I think he's got a grander vision for it, where I think it's going to be a payment portal. It's going to be a community. It's going to be a conversational piece, a way to transact. And it's going to be, he just knows the eyeballs are there and it's already got global reach, right? And so now how do you take that and expand it in the right way? And you got to cut it down to start over. And it's going to be messy and dirty and people are not going to like it. But I think people are going to look back in 5 years ago, 44 billion bucks, that was a bargain. It was worth
Yeah.
5 or 6 times that.
Yeah. And that's why I say, like, there are only so few visionaries in the world, right? That have created many things, the Bill Gates, the Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Richard Branson. There are a few more that you may have never heard of, but there aren't that many. So for people in the masses to talk about these people, it's what do you do every day? You know what I mean? Like, you can go to one place and come home every single day. That's what you do. And then you, in the evening, you go on social media and rat on people and talk about people. Like, open up your minds. The future is being built by these few people, and there should be more. And hopefully the kids of the future will take over and do this. But it's crazy times right now.
I think you're right. And I think people are starting to see that there are ways to contribute and there are ways to get things done because there's many more tools now, right? The accessibility of communications, of production tools, again, back to the digital fashion, building a physical fashion line took a lot of money, right? You had to buy 10,000 units at a time. You had to buy a bunch of fabric. You had to have a team of people cutting and sewing and shipping and storing. And it's expensive, right? But creating something on a computer quickly and saying, hey, does this make sense? Does anybody like this? Oh yeah, 10,000 people jump in and say, we love it. Okay, I'm gonna mint this. I'm gonna create this as an NFT. I'm gonna sell them. Boom, no inventory, no like heavy carbon footprint, no trucks running back and forth,
Yeah.
no waste, right? When that season's over with fashion, what do you do with your warehouse full of 12,000, more garments? Like, oh man, that's like 2022. Where does it go? Right. I
Yeah.
think it gets shipped down to like second and third world countries and it gets cheaper and cheaper, but you're still wasting something.
Yeah.
And those, same with music and entertainment production, right? You can create a world-class record in your bedroom with your iPhone.
Yep.
You could shoot a movie, a production broadcast quality movie on your iPhone today, right? Which any kid has access to. Not any kid, but most people, and there are some limits, but many, many millions more than ever before. Right. And that, I think that just bodes well for the creator community and for potential down the line. But like you said, it's execution. I think there's a lot of visionaries. I just don't know a lot of visionaries that can execute because
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of people that have ideas. I always hear people, man, I thought of that. Well, what'd you do about it? Nothing.
Right.
You just thought about it. Like, I think about eating and then I go eat.
That's right.
And I'm a mad scientist, so I am working on things all the time and I execute a lot. Like you say, some stuff's going to fail, but everybody always says, why are you doing so many things? You should, this is the whoever, if I could go back in time, I want to slap the person that says, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Right. So what do I do with my eggs? Do I walk around with 75 different baskets, or do I just walk around with one egg and leave the other ones at home? What if I need to bring all 75 eggs? If I drop it, all 75 aren't going to break. And that's what I tell kids, like, do a bunch of stuff. Something's going to stick. But if you focus so hard on one thing and it fails, you've wasted so much time. And, a lot of people get depressed and they never try again. And I try and work on a lot of things at once, and something always sticks. And the stuff that sticks, then you focus on that for a while. But in the back, you start tweaking on the other things. And I think that's what creative people do. And we need more creative people doing that.
100%. It gives you perspective, like you said. If you just tunnel vision on one thing, and there is something to be said about focusing.
Yeah.
But focus and then move, right? It's
Yeah.
it's like what do they say? Innovate and iterate, right? You have to
Yeah.
go in and then there's going to be a pivot. There's never been a company that said, we're going to do X, Y, Z. And then 2 years later, it's still exactly X, Y, Z.
No.
Even
Yeah.
even within in the record business, I always say every artist came to me and say, hey, can you just write out the plan? Can you just give me the plan? I'm like, I could spend the time and put a plan together for you for the next 2 months. But let me tell you something, the next phone call that comes in will completely change that plan.
Yep.
Why? Because you thought you had a tour, and then all of a sudden a brand came in and said, hey, we'll give you $1 million if you guys do a commercial for this. It's going to have to, you have to travel to, Senegal, wherever to do it. Blows that plan out of the water.
Yep.
So I could spend a lot of time working on these plans, or I can learn how to adapt to what the next call, the next email is going to tell me, and work a general direction. Nothing wrong with having a strategy and a general direction, but be flexible to what's coming in, because those little nuances can change the way that you operate. They have to. If you don't, you're ignoring stuff, like you said. You're going to learn stuff in the failures that help you as you move down that line.
Yeah, 1000%.
I get it, man. I get it. Great to talk to you, Arabian. It's always a pleasure. I miss you, man. I haven't seen you in a few years in
I
person.
know.
I think we'll get together really soon.
Where are you living at now?
I'm up in the hills of LA.
Oh, okay. You're not
Where
far.
you at?
You don't play golf, huh? You're not a golfer.
Nah, man. I played a couple games of golf, but I am no golfer. But one day we'll go out and hit some balls.
I'm out there 5 days a week, man.
Are you really?
I play tournament golf, so I got to practice. So I don't care where I'm in the world. I played in Saudi Arabia last week, in Dubai, and Amsterdam. I've been all over the world playing golf. But yeah, that's what keeps me grounded. And 5 hours out there, 4.5 hours out there, you get time to really, really think about a lot of stuff and create as well. Because sometimes the static of the world takes over. And when you're out there, you get to focus on your game and really, really focus on other things. So
now the clarity is important, man. The mind space, people let the world run them, and they let the devices and all that stuff flow in. And you're right. Sometimes just putting it down for 3 or 4 hours gives you the perspective and the openness that you need to like make your thoughts, because you got to run the world. You don't let the world run you.
Yes, sir. There you go.
Well,
I appreciate you.
Great to see you, man. It's good to keep in touch. I'll talk to you very soon. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Take care. Have a great day.
Take care of yourself. You too.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.